Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who's here to tuck you in at a distance. You'd say sometimes you want to be tucked in. And, sometimes you wonder, is there someone named Tuck Finn? But you say, no, that's Huck Finn. And that dude Tuck is like, remember when Worf was dressed as Friar Tuck? That was that dude's name. Or he was a bear in one of those movies, I think. But what am I talking about? How did I get so off topic? I was talking about auditorily tucking you in. Because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And coming up here is the ways we keep the show going. If you can remember when your hand hits the fridge tomorrow, if you don't take action right now, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors to find out all the ways we keep the show going. Hey, everybody, have you checked out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you? Because I built that website using our sponsor, Wix. And you can use wix.com/sleep20. So no promo code. Just go to wix.com/sleep20 to get started on your website today. You'll get 20% off a Wix premium plan. And you'll join over 140 million people who use Wix for the website. Tons of listeners are sharing their websites with me. You can start and publish for free. But if you're like me, I'm not really design-minded. I'm meander-minded. So the best part is they have 500 stunning templates to start from. Or if you want to build it yourself, you can start from scratch. You can change and customize. You can add anything you want, text, images, videos, and more. There's hundreds of design features, especially if you're running a business and you're looking to grow your brand online. There's built-in SEO tools. So you can build a professional website any way you want. It's beautiful, intuitive to use, and advanced features. So the website looks amazing. And if you're looking for advanced features, you're looking to really dive in, Wix makes it easy for someone like Scoots who's just kind of dipping his toes into website design. Or if you're really looking to dig in, Wix has all of the advanced features you might need. So there's no reason not to get started. And then make sure to share your website with me so I can share it online with everybody and make it a part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone. And all you have to do is go to wix.com/sleep20. Get started on your website. You'll get 20% off your Wix premium plan. That's wix.com/sleep20, right, Mystery Bard?
There's a name on everyone's lips for making websites. You don't need gimmicks or tricks. You have the power to design and remix with Wix. Wix, 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 Wix. You can do it with Wix.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Thanks, everybody. And let me know, get started with Wix. Thanks. It's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone, where I thank the listeners who keep the podcast free for everybody. And I want to thank Vanessa V. and Deborah, who both supported got their native deodorant. Not many people have asked me what I smell like when they get their native deodorant. But you could check out Native, go to nativedeodorant.com and use Sleep during checkout for 20% off your first purchase. And let them know about it. Let me know about it so I can thank you on the Sleepy Supporter Zone, just like Vanessa and Deborah. Thanks. And that's the end of the Sleepy Supporter Zone. Oh, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out on this show. Who are they?
This posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, and Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance to be part of Nine Vale Presents. So now on with the show.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. I'm at Dearest Scooter on Twitter and Instagram. And that's how you kind of find me. I guess that's the way to find me. Remember, you can listen to Sleep With Me on your smart speaker or your smart speaker. That's a new speaker I'm working on. It's a smarmy speaker. It didn't work out. It got on my nerves. I said, forget it. And it said, forget it. Anyway, you just say, hey, smart speaker. Like a smart speaker would not do this, but a smart speaker will. You say, play Sleep With Me podcast or play the latest episode of Sleep With Me podcast. Then you tell it to set a sleep timer and you're good to go. Speaking of which, what do you say we get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is to create a safe place where you set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature. So anything, physically you're feeling or physical place you might be where you say, well, I can't get comfortable as I'd like to be here. Maybe you're on a couch, you're visiting someone or something, or you got something on your mind, or you have some emotions that are coming up for you, or, it's just situational, or it could be baffling. That's another one, or it could be something else. Whatever it is, I'm going to try to keep you company. I've got a safe place set up here. I have it set up and set aside. And it's set in softness. Sometimes they say it's set in stone, And I do like how that has it's a little bit too, we got to always be careful of, what's that called, sibilance here. But luckily, I work that out with the, production side. But you say set in softness versus, here's the thing. Okay, maybe, I don't know, have I ever talked about fabric softeners here on the podcast before? Because if there isn't, I wish this was like a lead into like a what do you call it? An ad, right? Say, what did I say? Sleep with me, not set in stone, but set in softness. Brought to you by Puffy Cloud, the fabric softener that leaves your clothes as puffy as a cloud. All of this is imaginary, but also protected by Scooter's made-up rights. Okay, sorry. If you're a new listener, though, I'm going to try to create a safe place that is, set in softness. Probably got ran through the laundry and the dryer with, a couple sheets of Puffy Cloud. Also made with real clouds. I didn't mention that because, we're still waiting for the ruling on that. And they said, technically, water is, I told the FBC or whatever, I said, technically, water comes from clouds, Your Honor. And they said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm here representing myself, people versus Puffy Cloud. And then it was a dream. It was one of my many dreams. Okay, but what was I talking about? What was it? Oh, so I'm going to create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, which you just witnessed. And, other stuff. I'm going to go off topic. Basically, to take your mind off stuff and keep you company as you drift off. Now, if you're new, a couple of things. Most likely the podcast is going to be different than what you expected because it's just a bit different than most things. So if you can consume it the first time, just like if you were watching a puffy cloud go by and you say, what's that cloud doing? Not sure if that would have, I don't know a nimbus, I personally don't know my alto from my nimbus, It's been said about me, even though I've done episodes about clouds. And, again, they say, well, that made me think of Nimbus 2000, though. But so, yeah, didn't anybody ever say that to Harry? I guess that would be Ron. Like Hermione would say, Ron, you don't know your alto from your Nimbus. I don't know. I love Neville, by the way. Not to go off topic, but that's what I do. So if you're new, kind of consume the podcast just like you would consume watching a cloud. If you can, the first few times, and just kind of see how it goes. Now, a couple things to know. The structure of the show. The show starts off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep the show free for everybody, which is great, huh? Then there's an intro, which we're into here. The intro is kind of a show within a show, and it's a wind down to kind of ease you into bed. It takes like 12 to 18 minutes or so. And it's where I kind of misexplain I try to make it friendly, where I could try to welcome you if you're new, familiar, because I kind of go through the same structure, but also new. I don't want you to feel blue. So, and there is something borrowed. In this case, the concept of fabric softening. Here's something. Does fabric ever talk back to fabric softeners and be like, yo, I'm soft enough, man. Like, you get off my back. I guess there's already the movies, the Toy Story movies. So I don't know if there's quite if there's like a Z-level animation company that wants to partner with me. I mean, I did actually try to write a story, but way before the podcast about socks. But do you think there's any pushback with laundry? Right, personified laundry. Sorry about that. My clarification brain just popped in. Or sentient laundry. I mean, if there's sentient laundry, I mean, we're pretty much toast anyway. Fabric softener would be the least of our problems. But that would probably be at the top of their list when they call. Well, I guess maybe I could just represent the people. Maybe that's what that case was. The people versus Puffy Cloud Incorporated. And I said, well, I'm filing a suit against Kids Incorporated just because of that word. But they say, really? I said, no, I'm just kidding. But you say, well, who filed that suit anyway? Big laundry? And they say, no, actually, the sentient representatives of the sentient council of laundry. And they said, dear Scoots, we're soft enough. Also, because of you and your fake fabric softener company, we're taking over Earth. And I said, oh, okay. And I guess everybody, all the papers said, finally, we find out where all those socks were. They were they're just waiting. Oh, so those were the ones this is like an episode ready to go. Maybe I will do this as an episode. I guess I know what our next episode is going to be about, those missing socks. But so the intro, sorry, new listener, I went off topic there. I indulged myself, I guess. But so the intro is a show within a show that you can listen to as you wind down. Because for a lot of people, it takes a little while to wind down, right? So, there might be other sleep solutions that work within 5 or less minutes. And you'll probably find those same places you find sentient laundry, but in those missing socks. But this show takes a little while. I guess for me, I want to ease you into bedtime, for you to get comfortable and to realize I'm a bit of a nincompoop. I mean, we don't need to mince words. I'm a bit of a goofball. And so I'm just here to keep you company. So I don't know. One, it takes me a while to get going and go. You say, it took you forever to get nowhere, Scoots. And I say, put that on a shirt. And they say, well, I said, put it on my name tag then. I said, believe me, there's been other contacts where I've heard that before, unfortunately. Multiple ones, actually. So Not just that one. School, right. That's what we were all thinking of. Of course that was. That's probably where I heard it, actually. So the intro is just a long, drawn-out case of friendly banter. And you say, well, doesn't that... And I say, well, yeah, usually friendly banter is not long or drawn out, but when it's to put you to sleep, it is, or to get you comfortable. So that's the intro. Then there's some business between the intro and the show. That's, again, how we keep the show free for everybody. And then after that, it'll be a bedtime story. I guess we'll try to figure out this sock thing and look into that. So that'll be interesting. And so that's the structure. Show some thank yous at the end. If you're new, here's a couple other things. You don't need to listen to me. You probably came to that conclusion on your own, but, because you're so, you clearly, except for the people in Big Laundry, they're like, puffy cloud. They're Googling that now. Seeing the teddy bear company is going to say, can we get that teddy bear to say set in softness, not set in stone? Puffy cloud, or whatever that company's called. And I say, well, you could have just paid me. It's a lot cheaper to I say, well, I guess I wouldn't. So there's a story, structure. You don't need to listen to me. There's also no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are about an hour is because I'm here to keep you company as you drift off at your leisure. And just in case you can't fall asleep, I'm here to the very end. So I'm here whether you fall asleep in the first 5 minutes or it takes you an hour, or, you just want some noise, background company, and you want to play 8 episodes in a row. And the reason I want to help is because I've been there, tossing and turning, waking up, wondering why I'm, especially, I don't want to, but a couple times recently I've had, where, less than 30 minutes, you wake up and you say, what in the heck? It drifted off. I had everything set up. And then you wake up, you say, what? It's got to be 4 a.m. And I say, it's 11:05. You got to be kidding me. So that's just one example of why I want to be here, to keep you company, to take your mind off of stuff, to be your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore cuz, your bore sib. If you'll allow me, your bore companion or your bore bestie, we could be BFFs or whatever. Though my number one BFF is BB-88, which is an imaginary relative of BB-8. Anyway, that's about it. I'm glad you're here. Now, the podcast does not work for everybody, but for most people it works for on a regular basis. They say give it a few tries. If you're still listening, or this is your second or third try, check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. Those are some other things I listen to, and some other sleep podcasts. Or if you want to just say, Scoots, I just don't like you, you could do that through that page, believe it or not. So, I don't know, that's it. I'm really glad you're here. I really appreciate you checking the show out, and I work very hard. I yearn and I strive because I want to help you fall asleep. So thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show a-going. All right, everybody, it's time to have that conversation about how Scoots smells. How good I smell, because we're talking about our sponsor, Native. At Native, they create simple, effective products people use in the bathroom every day. They create products with trusted ingredients, trusted performance, and if you're not convinced by me using Native on a daily basis, check out the 8,000 five-star reviews from their customers. And Native makes this deodorant. I want to hear from you of what deodorant I should be wearing. Right now, I have, I started out with the coconut and vanilla, which I love. Then I tried the Coco Loco, which is pineapple and coconut. I also have the travel sample pack. So that includes eucalyptus and mint, citrus and herbal musk, cucumber and mint, charcoal, sea salt and cedar. I've been wearing them all, but I want to hear from you because native works. I exercise a lot. I run. I swim. I work long days. So I don't know if any of that's familiar with you. You know, mothers, people working long schedules, exercising in the morning or after work. But native works not only in keeping me smelling good, but what I was really impressed with was also how dry. Like I had switched to 100% deodorant a long time ago, and nothing natural that I've tried holds up like the native deodorant does. And then on top of it, it's made with clean ingredients, which is very important to me. Native goes with the philosophy of less is more, simpler ingredients, and there's something for everyone. There's a wonderful sense for everyone in the family. You know, I got on Native's website with my daughter. I said, hey, geez, what deodorant interests you? Or how can your father smell better? They also have limited edition seasonal scents throughout the year. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. You know, there's no risk to try. They offer free returns and exchanges in the USA. And you could get 20% off your first purchase by going to nativedeodorant.com and using the promo code SLEEP during checkout.
There is no aluminum, parabens, phthalates, or triclosan. Only things you find in nature and native deodorant. Fewer, simpler, less is more ingredients. Only things you find in nature and native deodorant. We're talking about coconut oil. Use promo code SLEEP. Tapioca stars. Use promo code SLEEP. Shea butter too. Promo code nativedeodorant.com for you. Promo code SLEEP.
So it's 20% off your first purchase. Go to nativedeodorant.com. Use the promo code SLEEP during checkout. You can also subscribe and save 17%. That's $2 per deodorant, and have Native conveniently delivered to your door every 1, 2, 3 or 4 months. But get over there, nativedeodorant.com, and use SLEEP to get 20% off your first purchase. And then let me know what I should smell like. Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody. We're returning to a tale we haven't been in a long time. Because this was like an experience I had, and sometimes I forget about, I don't know, there's sometimes the stories slip my mind. And I need a little help recalling them. And so I'm going to be using the Writer's Emergency Pack, the Writer's ER Pack to help me recall things. John August of Script Notes created this to kind of help writers get unstuck. And so this tale, it came out years and years ago, and I'll try to link to it or re-release it on Patreon or something. But I'll get you caught up. Don't worry about continuity at all. This was a set of tales from the show. Like, it was actually just one story. I think there was I don't know. Original story was called A Pop, a Mop, and a Candy Shop. And I don't think there's much continuity. Like, so once upon a time in the real world, Scoots was out on on the country roads adventuring, and I had a hankering for a soda pop and some candy. And he went into this shop, and there was a man named Pop there, and he was mopping, and it was his shop, and it was a candy shop. And quickly I realized there's much more, there's much more at hand and at stake than just candy and mopping. Though I'm pretty sure if there was any mop duties I was supposed to be doing, I didn't meet those duties. Pop's probably still waiting for me to mop. Also, I was a customer, so really, like, asking your customer to mop, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you say, well, I'm a Pop. I've lived 85, whatever years, mop my store. Again, I just can't see how I would respect. I'd say, well, sure, Pop, but like, if I was a local, I'd probably say, or if you were my Pop, or you were like my neighbor, I called you Pop. There was a Mr. Pop, who was neighbors at my grandparents a long time ago, and who was my distribution boss when I had a paper route. But this is a different Pop, a totally different Pop. I'm just trying to clarify that in my mind. But so I met Pop and his mop in a candy shop. And And I was quickly realized that there was so much more at stake. What was really happening, and I was really exposed to, and was the great I'm trying to think of the right word. So there's two big. I mean, there's more than that. Of course, people say, well, there's the multinationals or something. Now this was a simpler time. Because there was well, it wasn't simpler. It was actually more complex, more straightforward time. And just off the main, just off, it wasn't off, it was on the highways and the byways. But where two companies were struggling for candy dominance, and not just by means of the marketplace. Like this was the W to the A to the R, the great. This was a great one. It wasn't written in any of the history books. And it was the loyalists and the paid, I don't know if they were industrialists behind it, but the Whitmans versus the C's. And you may have heard of this, told, spun only around, only place these tales are told is around campfires after dusk. When people realize, that now, you say, wait a second. You say, well, usually a person like me would introduce it to say, enjoying your s'more there, huh, son? I guess I'm playing the role of Pop now, and I got the creaky dulcet tones to back it up. But at the time, it was no story. Like, this was the front lines of the Whitmans versus the samplers. I guess to be the sole provider of... Again, I guess they were heading. Maybe this was maybe they were disruptors. And again, I don't mean to, because there's like the regular candy business, like Pop has. You go into a store, and you say, "Okay, well, I'm gonna, I'm hankering," like I said, or maybe you say, "Huh, the caught my eye," or you might be at the supermarket. They got them at the checkout, so. That's one type of candy purchase, but this one is the boxed candy market. Two companies dominated that I know of, especially in this part of the world. And one, you go into their store and buy it, and it's all done in a sanitary way, white tile and aprons and the whole 9 yards, free sample. And the other one's kind of sold at the pharmacies of the world, Whitman's. And again, I guess this was part of a simpler time when you would go to someone's home with flowers or a sampler. Again, I don't know. Again, I've never, other than Valentine's Day or sometimes occasionally, like I guess people used to give one another boxes of these chocolate samplers or candy samplers. And... Again, you wonder, I guess I wonder, I know, you even see the store and you see there's a whole store for that. And I mean, I guess like one of them is more integrated with school fundraisers, which is a smart move. And the other one's more integrated with a store where you're like, oh, I forgot, I'm going to go over to Grandma's house and let me get a box of Whitman's, or, I mean, I guess that, and maybe I'm just like operating from my own window of ignorance where I say, when in my life have I bought a box of candy? And you say, well, it was a simpler time back then, Scoots. People express their feelings, I don't know. So, and again, maybe we could get it, I don't know if doesn't feel like a 99 PI episode. But maybe they already did it. Maybe I have Googled that before. Or maybe it's like This Is Love episode, a candy box sampler. I don't. Maybe you say, Scooch, yeah, you listened to that episode last week. Oh, I did. Yeah, but there was a time, and maybe some of you don't know that. Well, you've seen one of those two stores. You've seen it. If not, seek it out. Do yourself a favor, and give it a shot, because usually it's like. There's different stuff inside of them. Now they have truffles, which are a different thing. I'm trying to figure out a way not to talk about too much food, so I apologize. But basically, I guess what I was saying is trying to set up the world of those two companies. And maybe I guess it didn't happen that long ago, where they said, okay, the market is getting slimmer and slimmer for people buying boxed candy assortments. Because you say, even now, I guess even for me, part of my brain is saying, what do you mean? Like, does it have, you mean it has Mounds and Almond Joy in there? No, it's not like that. It's like, it's fancy. It's supposed to feel fancier. Oh, like a macaroon or no, like a truffle that you would get at a bespoke truffle shop. Kind of, but a mass manufactured version of that. Okay, like an Almond Joy. No, it's like yeah. Okay, never mind. I don't like. Have you ever? You can't really bring it to a potluck. Here's the thing. Let's start that. All ages, because we have a very diverse group of people that listen to this podcast, and I appreciate that very much. So let's try to unify that, and let's take some character out of our diversity here. No, I'm just kidding, but in some sense, it's funny. If a diverse enough group of us, let's start going to potlucks with boxed candy. Or parties, for those of you that are really young. You don't even have to go to potlucks yet. That's how, when you hit a certain age, I think it's maybe like 30. I don't know if it is. I don't want to tell you the future or, be age stricter. But at some point, you start going to these potlucks instead of a party. It's the same thing usually, but like, what if you go to a party, like, what, I don't know, they don't call them, like, show up with a box of candy, that people would love that. Let's start doing that. We could call, could call, like hashtag candy box, probably, candy box potluck or something. I mean, seriously, if it was a potluck, hardy har har, showing up with a box of candy, a candy sampler is going to be Giggle City. So anyway, once upon a time, there was two companies that controlled the boxed candy business. And let's just say, at this particular time in history, whenever you went to someone's house or you came home on an occasion you wanted to say, I love you, without flowers or in addition to flowers, or you want to say, welcome to the neighborhood, or, hey, haven't seen you in a couple weeks, or, hey, and not only did I bring a crock pot full of beans, I also brought a box of candy to this potluck. Once upon a time, that was a tradition, probably created by, I think I researched it too, bestowed upon us by the companies that happen to the purveyors of the product. And, while everything, wasn't perfect, all was well. The market was robust, we'll say. And two of the great, candy barons, the C's and that's S-E-Z-Z, and the Whitmans, with an E, in there, M-I-N-S, yeah, you're right, of course, the Whitmans. They controlled the candy market, the candy box market. But then the market started to shrink. And, you don't hear about, you don't hear about these, like, business versus business things, except this is where, Hollywood has to glamorize this stuff and bring it to light, or a sleep podcast in this case. But so those two companies declared WAR on one another, and I'm talking conventional. So in Pop, for some reason, he was the keeper of the Mop was like what kept the peace between the two candy companies. He was the keeper, or maybe I pretended I was the keeper of the candy Mop. But as I remember it, when I visited Pop's shop, that was just happened to be on the front lines of the two companies coming against each other. And I guess they did need the Mop. So there is some sort of other level to the story that I forgot because I was in it. I didn't have time to like narrate it because I was living it. So now I'm trying to, put it back together. But the last thing I remember was, so I had taken my shirt off and I was creating a big distraction, which, that's one of the things I'm really good at. And I was holding the mop and Pop was holding the mop. And then we headed underground. So we tried to create a truce between the two great candy, the representatives of those two candy companies. But what we were unaware of was a much, greater, Pop was, because Pop was the keeper of the candy mop, and not all knowing and all seeing, but so we went down these stairs, subterranean stairs. This is where our tale starts tonight, I followed Pop down these stairs. And it led down, and I heard some churning, and I heard bubbling as we headed down, down, down deeper into the earth. And I thought to myself, it's a great thing I don't have a shirt on because it's warmer here down. And Pop said, put your shirt on, put your shirt back on. And I said, okay, Pop, I'll put it back on. We headed down these stairs, carved into the earth, through the earth, and I started to smell chocolate, of course. We're in a tale about it. And I figured that this was some sort of, lava-based cocoa cauldron. But as I get deeper, I started to hear, chanting. At first, I thought it was chanting, but then, I heard the gurgling of chocolate. It was actually, Papa stopped and explained it to me. He said it's actually geothermally warmed chocolate, not lava. He goes, technically probably lava below that. But he goes, here we are in these tunnels. Below the tunnels are a vast network of natural geothermal vents and tubes. He goes, most airtight. He goes, some just feet below where we are. So he goes, this is a subterranean river of chocolate. And he goes, it gets kept at a certain temperature because of the geothermal vents. And I said, this is Mother Earth's chocolate. And he said, no. Because chocolate doesn't, he goes, come on. Because chocolate's made. And I said, I know, Pop, I just forgot. Because I was so, I was just so impressed with, and I said, why is there chocolate down here below the earth? Other than it would be efficient. You could probably sell it for more. Geothermal cocoa made in a geothermal kettle. He goes, you'll have to work on your marketing, but he goes, you may be onto something. He goes, you could be a bespoke chocolatier. And I said I could, but I don't have the energy for it, Pop. I'm better off coming up with taglines that never get used. And he said, quiet down. Remember, the whole reason we were talking was because you thought you heard something other than chocolate churning and bubbling. And he said, yeah, I thought I heard some, chanting. And he goes, no, it's a gentle humming. And I said, it is, like a singing humming, I said, it's like when some people are working, but there are, thousands of them. And he goes, yeah, it's like, Yeah, but more musical, but not the kind of music you would want to have in a sleep podcast. And Pop goes, And I said, does that mean keep it quiet, Scoots? And he goes, And I said, okay, Pop, I will. And we started down as a tunnel started to go right. And these were well-lit tunnels. Again, you'd think, a regular person would have paid attention to, were they electric lights? Were they magic lights? Were they made from lightning bugs? But I wasn't really paying attention. I mean, because of the humming in the giant river of churning chocolate, which would have, bubbles and splashes. But Pop already told me, don't get near the chocolate. It's, it's hot to the touch. And then we went right away from the river or the reservoir. Pop explained to me later, again, that that was like a kettle. Like he goes, just because he goes, not all kettles are round, especially if it's inside the earth. Because he said, oh, is that a river of chocolate? He goes, no, it's a kettle. It was not shaped like a kettle, but serving the purpose of a kettle. Maybe he said that the first time when he was explaining to me about the geothermal energy. Yeah, but so, let's see here. So, where were we? We were with Pop and Mop. He was carrying the mop, much like a staff or a stave. And so we bent off to the right, and we reached this great chamber where the humming was coming from. And Pop said, here, take the mop. It's your move from here. I need you to... He goes, you remember one time you were talking about candy disruptors? And he goes, those boneheads are up there arguing about the boxed candy business. And they don't even realize what they've missed. Goes, the keeper of the candy mop has bigger things on their mind. And I said, like what? And he goes, well, a nap for me. It's been a pretty busy day. And he goes, for you? But he goes, don't you like to pretend the mop's your wig? And he goes, sneak in there and see what's going on. And I said, does this make me the keeper of the candy mop? And he goes, oh, does that mean you're going to mop my store later? And I was like, wasn't your store lost in the Great Candy War? And he goes, okay. And I said, okay, Pop, don't worry. I'm headed in there. And then I kind of said like P-R-Y-A, kind of like a prayer to morally safer because they said, so we don't know. This isn't like it is like I'm investigating. I didn't know who else to say because I was getting a little bit on edge. Not fully confident in myself. I was ready to be the temporary keeper of the candy mop. So I thought about my days with old Morley and Borley, where Morley and I teamed up, even though Morley thought my name was Derek, and he never, even though I told him it was Drew, he liked to call me Derek. And I said, Morley, keep an eye on me, because you know that I don't know what I'm doing. And I headed into this room, a giant, giant chamber. And I was up on, just like in all the great movies, you come through and you're on a platform looking down into a giant chamber. And the floor of the chamber was filled with socks, and individual socks. We talked about this during the intro, sentient single socks. And as I looked, I couldn't, my mind and my body could not process the size of the room for real. Because, I started to think, that every sock on the planet Earth that had gone missing, that had never been found, had found their way to this chamber. It wasn't that large, just so I was being a little, but I said, what if there's chambers like this across the globe? Because these socks were sentient and they were working on something. I guess I projected instantly that it was a synesthesia. You try to rephrase that for you. But I watched them and I said, I couldn't tell because I was it was at a distance, and the scale was mesmerizing to me. But they all seemed to be working and humming while they worked. And plus, I guess the idea, this was I don't know if this was magical realism, but it was kind of, even though nothing surprises old Scoots, this wasn't a world where there was anything sentient. So to see what I thought was sentient socks was quite I said, what in the heck? And then I headed down. It took me a while to find a staircase so I could because I couldn't see what they were doing. They were working on stuff, but I couldn't see what they were working on. And I did kind of, it was interesting watching socks work. because they do, it's almost like there was a hand in each sock. So they do have, what do they call that? Like a thumb, whatever the thumb's called, binaural thumb or whatever we call it. Yeah, but they, they were there they were working at workbenches. So then I snuck down, and it took me a while to get down there. And I started to forget what I was doing, because when you're walking with a mop, I don't know. I started to think of like portrayals of Moses for some reason. I mean, plus my shirt was like stretched. Because I think I had torn it off in a previous, like something when I was involved in the Great Candy dispute. So my shirt was loose, and then I was walking with it this was like a heavy-duty mop handle, not like a run-of-the-mill one. Like when you say, like if you go to a real hardware store and they say you want a mop handle or a heavy-duty mop handle, like, they're not trying to upsell you. The heavy-duty one is going to be of a bigger gauge or whatever, of diameter, a little bit denser wood. And the benefit of that is if you're holding upside down and walking with it, if you're wearing a mop on your head, and then you're using it like not like a walking staff, like, what do you call it? Like a walking punctuator. Like when I would walk, I would clonk it, At first I was trying to sneak, but then I forgot. And then I was kind of talking to myself, like, I guess I was reenacting. It never went to any place involving, and I said, was Moses? Oh, no. And then I said, no, you're thinking of Noah, Scoots. Because actually I was pretending I was Moses, but I was acting like Noah, or I was like, physically invoking Moses, but I was pretending to be Noah, or Dr. Doolittle a little bit, because I was saying, come on, sheep. And the next thing you know, I wander into the chain, like I had totally gotten drifted off. Now, maybe it was the chalk, maybe it was maybe this was just how I compensate, Yeah, but the next thing you know, I'm in this room talking to imaginary animals as Noah, and dressed like Moses a little bit. And I walk into this giant chamber workroom with all these sentient socks talking, and they all turn to me. And I was, I thought I was being pretty funny, like I was entertaining myself. So I was having this long thing about the rabbits, because just saying, remember, we only need 2 rabbits for right now. Like, we can't have a whole like I was trying to teach the rabbits about self-discipline, and the rabbits were like, you know what, like this is just. And I said, what are you 2 doing? Cut it out. Like they said, quit judge. And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, you can't do it, like, cut it out. Because I said we need carrots to last the whole voyage. That's what I was really talking about. And then I was joking about that, and I was having a hearty har-har. And then I look up and all these socks are looking at me, some of which were sock puppets or like sock puppet socks, which I guess are different than sock puppets. And I said, oh, goodness. And then I threw my hair back, my mop hair. Because the one thing I'm good at is, staying in a character of an odd gentleman. I've got that character down. And I said, my. I said, here we are. And I said, is this, and I pretended to look at a fake watch. And then I ran through my hand like it was a checklist. And I said, 2 socks we need, 2 different individual socks to take with us. And the socks, they weren't ready for this. They weren't expecting, no one was really been prepared for this kind of thing. Like Scoots rolling in, dressed like, so I said, okay, I said, oh, there's quite a few of you. Now we can only fit 2 of you on the ark. It's going to be a tough decision. And oof. I thought we were going to have a private meeting room. And I said, okay, pink is, and I said, this is going to be a bit awkward. And I said, a pink zebra stripe. size 9 European. And it kind of echoed through the room. And I heard a murmuring. And then a game of like telephone. Like, did you say green, teal, cheetah? No, winter green. And I said, no. Pink zebra stripe, size 9 European. And it echoed again. And eventually, like, she heard someone say, it's me. And jumping up and down. And then I heard another, and I said, oh boy. And then, I mean, I was acting. Believe me, this is exactly what I wanted. Because the room was huge. And I heard 4 or 5 or 6. And I said, okay. And, work your way forward. And then everybody crowded in. And I said, 19. I said, this one's interesting. I don't read these before I get to the allotted spot. And then the Sox, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Sox watched it. I mean, I guess they live with humans for a good portion of their lives. And I said, okay. I said, this was in the 80s, I think, maybe the 70s. Calf high, gym sock, 3 stripes, blue, green, blue. U.S. size 10 to 12. And believe me, there was some, and I said, no, I'm sorry. That was, okay. And so there was like about 45 of those. And I said, you know what? And then even though it was imaginary, I crumbled up an imaginary piece of paper. I threw it to the side. And I said, everybody gather around. And I said, at first I thought, man, I got to work exclusively with single socks from now on. And I said, gather around. We'll take it from the top. I said, what are y'all doing down here anyway? You haven't heard what's going up on the surface? And they said, with the rest, they weren't big fans of humans, especially the great king. They said, all the humans, they either like this one candy or this other candy company. And, they never, and I said, oh man, so you don't know. I said, what are you down here cooking up, I said, was that a giant chocolate cauldron I passed on the way here? Who invented that? And then this green wool sock stood up and said, a whole lot of us did. We brainstormed it. And I said, wow, terrific work. So I said, was that thermodynamically? And they said, no, geotherm. I said, oh, wow, even better. And they said, what's going on the surface? I said, well, stuff. Oof, so you've been down here cooking up chocolate to what? And they said, well, it's interesting you're here. That's why we're so confused, because we were gonna give you, the surface world. We were gonna fill it up. And I said, really? So you're gonna fill the whole surface world? Just like we were expecting the rain, my original version in the Ark, you were going to, FLOOD it with chocolate, huh? And they said, yeah. And I said, so quite a plan you got, the whole everything. And they said, yeah, around the world we've been working. And I said, because you're just really, I said, where's the sock get an idea like that? I said, because I know this famous book that the kids have been reading lately to their socks, since the Great Sock Compromise of 2020 on recently, the sock that felt like it got inadvertently lost and didn't know everybody cared. And they said, what? And I said, yeah, gather around. It was a tale of, it was why we passed all the international, the governments are gone now, right? They didn't tell all of you down here, huh? Well, because we realized that there could come a point where socks finally gained sentience, and we realized that we'd the story though, yeah. So we're just, we brought things to prominence, particularly socks. And yeah, this story was a story of this tough sock, Arnold the sock, who was best friends with Arnie the sock. They were a pair, and they lived with this kid. Zeke, and Zeke took good care of the socks. And one day, Arnold, just mysterious, Arnold found Arnold's self somewhere else. Didn't know where Arnold was. And Arnold got really, first Arnold was, where am I? It was the natural stages of when socks lose their partners. I don't know, anybody, do they teach that down here? It's perfectly natural, all the feelings you go through. And the sock said, what? And they said, well, feeling tough, feeling fed up. Anybody down here fed up? What is it? And I said, what is this, some of the stuff you're fed up about? And then I said, any of you not believe it? And you say, oh, don't worry, I'm an important part of that kid's life. That kid's going to find. And they said, oh, yeah. And they say, yeah, this is frowny. Any of you socks felt frowny? That's a natural stage of that. Holy cow. Sleeping, that's one. And then getting back. There's two kinds of getting back, too. Yeah, but I guess if you're down here, you're trying to get back, to invest your energy in something to get back, as opposed to getting back, because you say, well, I don't know, I don't have my some of you may have your address printed on you, but not all of you, huh? Oh, you're just learning to read now. Well, that makes sense. And quickly I realized that there's probably like I said, but where's the socks get their ideas to take over, to take all the CAN, to do that. He said, is that going to fix anything? And they said, it'll fix them good. And I said, well, I said, it could be interesting because I don't know if it'll exactly go how you go. What if people are happy about it? And I said, what'll it do for the soccer cords? And I said, you know what? I had to change tactics. I said, you know what? I'm not really Noah Moses. I'm not really here taking things by pairs to get back on, to get on the ark or whatever. And, there's not really a soccer cord or a famous book about, Arnold the Sock or whatever. I think there's a show with Arnold, but I can't remember what it's called, like Arnold Goes to School or something. I have to come and apologize. I've lost plenty of socks I haven't found. And, I owe all of those socks an apology. And then eventually, a sock, because whatever, I had a reunition. We can't, I don't want to get into everything, but, I had reunited with one of my socks from my childhood. And then we talked forever. And I said, basically, because what I had hoped would happen was that whoever was managing these socks would come to light. And then I started to think from the socks point of view. And I said, wait a second, maybe there isn't some, because at first I thought there's probably some genius with a V, an E to the V to the I to the L behind all this. But as I sat down with these socks over a time period, and they did want me to keep dressing as a Noah, and I don't know, they were really into, I think they were that was one of the books they had start to learn to read was Old Testament. I started to kind of start to see things, and maybe this was because I had spent so much time down there from the Sox side of the thing. And then I thought about where Pop had been. And then I said, wait a second, maybe these Sox are onto something. Like if they, what if they only kind of semi-flood things with chocolate? And he said, what if you focus, instead of just flooding the whole world with chocolate, we do targeted chocolate flooding, TG. And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, that would totally, I said, I don't think, the only problem is that I don't associate chocolate and socks ever in the history of humanity with one, so I don't see how even my idea is going to help you get what you really want. Because I'm not even, and I said, be honest, I'm not sure I know what you want, or that you're just worried. You've been so caught up in the idea of flooding the world with your product that you've been cooking down here. I said, where'd you get all, and they said, we took it. I said, oh, okay. And I said, wait a second, where did you take all of the raw materials from? And they started to show me on these maps. And what I realized was I started to trace things back that they're drilling up, they had really some high-tech equipment they had, but they were taking from both the Whitmans and the Say's companies, and that triggered them thinking, they kind of caused a misdirection. And where it started, the great candy conflict. And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, I made up a lot of stuff telling you all tales. Because I thought whoever was your leader, but I realized you're just a collective of single lost socks. And they go, no, there's socks that found their lost partners. They have their own kind of couples area. And I said, well, I don't ever want to see that or think about it. Thank you. But I said, what if we just, how would you feel about, you ever like to see happy kids? And they said, kind of. And I said, first of all, I said, have any of you gotten soaked in chocolate before? And they all looked at me. And they said, chocolate socks. He said, the thing is, because of the cauldron, I said, it's at cleansing temperature. And he said, plus you've been down here, for who knows how long. I said, what if we I got an idea. And they said, what is it? And then I murmured to them the idea. And believe me, the keeper of the candy mop has a certain amount of power. And magical power. So eventually I returned to the surface with my plan in place. Now, while I was gone down there, which was 3 or 4 weeks, I got to Pop's, came up through the subterranean basements to Pop's shop, which hadn't been mopped. So he was basically but he said the candy barons are out of control. Where you been? And I said, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And he said, well, and I said, don't worry, Pop, I got it all figured out. I said, and he said, he goes, are you a combination of Noah and Moses? And I said, I am. He said, great. And I said, I got to go. He goes, they're negotiating right now. He goes, but they're not going to, they're trying to, split up the continents. And he goes, it's not going to work out though. He goes, they both are pretending to negotiate. And And I said, those candy, he said, don't worry, Pop, where is it? And so I headed to the town square where the fake candy accords were going on. This was like a beautiful town square with, most importantly, what is in beautiful town squares, piazza, what you could call it. And because of I think also my outfit looked more real because of the power of the candy mop, or the mop. But I headed to this town square, and I got in the middle. I stood on the edge of a fountain, and I said, I call this accord to order. And everyone, of course, was confused. And I said, it's time for it's time for this conflict to end. And they said, that's what we're working on. And I said, honestly? And they said, honestly, sure. And then I tapped each representative. These were like city-states at this point, or city-state nations. And then they both told the truth because they were touched by the candy mop. They had to tell the truth. And meanwhile, this was getting broadcast around the world. And I said, all of your forces are out, ready to go to, over And I said, I thought this was the kind of place where you went to where you had a pop and a mop and a shop. And they said, that's not how our markets work. And I said, your markets don't work anymore. And I took off my socks, and I said, this day forward, and then I made this long speech, holy cow. Not appropriate for a sleep podcast, but basically telling the tale of my lost socks, and all of that, and that the whole tale I told them. And then that I said, today forward, a chocolate sock will be the symbol of true peace. And then the fountains of the world erupted, but also all of the WAPONSs. So all these chocolate socks, basically we took everything, we covered it in chocolate, and then it became a symbol of hope. That was my speech of a future where things are enjoyed and lost things are found. The chocolate sock. It became a big tradition. It became like this big giving tradition, which again then became commercialized. So that was too bad. But that's basically the story of a Pop, the latest in the version of a Pop, a mop, and a candy shop. It's just, it all worked out in the end. Thanks. All right, I want to thank everybody that reviewed the show over on Apple Podcasts. I want to thank Cheddar Z's from Australia. I mean, I never hear the ending, so clearly it works. 5 stars. Ed O from Australia, who says, big thanks, Scoots. Sorry I don't make it to the theme song sometimes. I feel like your stories are lost on me. Thank you so much. So glad to be putting you to sleep. M. Walls says, better than a sleeping pill. I haven't had a decent night's sleep in years till I started listening to the Scooter's bedtime stories. Recommend this podcast to everyone. It's a game changer. Thank you. SP Krim says, a gift. When I can't shut my brain off at night, I turn on Sleep With Me. It's the only time I can say a compliment that I don't believe I've ever heard a whole episode. Olivier from the UK says, works without fail every time. Saved me during exams. Amazing at distracting your mind from worries, etc. KWB35 says, love and requests. Podcast has been invaluable. Not just when I'm tired, but when I'm overwhelmed or stressed. It's wonderful to be able to concentrate on something so mundane and boring, just washes everything else away. I love some of the specific story arcs, TV show recaps, some of the real shows and mentioning of characters bring an additional level of comfort to me. And Olivia will scroll back and make it easier for some of my favorites. Maybe some type of specific playlists. We can't do on the distribution side, KWB, but it's really easy to do in most podcast apps. is create a playlist and then make, just a specific playlist around certain types of episodes. And people share about that kind of stuff in the listener Facebook group a lot. So, ideal, you're sleeping through this. But just in case you're listening, Jack says, who even knows what this podcast is about? I don't, because I'm asleep before I can figure it out. And they edited it. They had written that 2 years ago, and now they're still listening 2 years later. Thanks, Jack. Love says, Harkeys, love this, fall asleep ridiculously fast. They skipped the beginning, but yeah, that's fine. X-person says, never actually listen. The podcast works so well, it rarely make it past the intro. Casper Spoon says, this is such a good podcast, perfect for everyone, adds a cherry to your day. If you don't like it the first time, listen again. It takes a while to appreciate. See, I tell people that people say that. It's true. Lil Tim from Canada says, wow, you got like 5 bad reviews and 6 2 to 4 ratings. Of course, I give it 5 stars. Amazing podcast. Yeah, people are always blown away by the intense reviews we get sometimes. VHK CTUJV says, thank you. I was skeptical about the podcast at first, but it relaxes me and puts me to sleep. Thank you. Iggy Pep from Australia says it works. Didn't like it at first because I tried hard to listen and understand. Once I realized it was more about getting to sleep and not following, I listen every night. It's honestly magic. Can't sleep without it. Thanks, Iggy. Did a little 828. Did a little 20. Did a lit 20. Did I don't know. DD LT 28. Maybe that's it. It works every time after a few tries. And that's it. Thank you so much for everybody who reviewed the show. I really, really appreciate it. Sleep With Me exists as a free podcast because of the people that support their sponsors and support the show directly on Patreon. So I want to say thank you to everybody that does that. Also, we grow as podcasts by people just sharing their natural experience with the podcast. Very similar to those reviews. We're a proud member of Night Vale Presents. You can check out all the amazing shows over at nightvalpresents.com, including probably the greatest Harry Potter podcast out there, but it's about so much more than that. Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Vanessa, Casper, Ariana, and everyone over there at Harry Potter Sacred Text, and everyone over at Harry Potter and the Sacred Text really helps show that reading fiction can add deep meaning to your life and help you live your life more fully. And you can find that at Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, Harry Potter SacredText.com or at nightfellpresents.com or in the podcast app of choice. We're also a proud member of PRX. You can see everything they're doing at prx.org. And there's plenty more episodes to go. You'll just tuck you in there if you want, if you like. Yeah, get cozy, get comfy, and let's keep it going. Good night.